Relatively light practice for the Eagles as they closed out a stretch of 4 practices in a row. We will tell you everything you need to know and unpack the latest details of the Nick Sirianni Jalen Hurts relationship coming up next on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Wednesday. Hi to Bo Wulf, Zach Berman. Plenty to talk about. Shorts and shells for the Eagles today, Zach. It wasn't quite as sweltering as it was yesterday. A little bit lighter action. We'll talk about what we heard from Nick Sirianni about expectations for Friday's preseason opener against the Baltimore Ravens. But we also have to talk a lot about the bombshell, the banger dropped by Tim McManus on ESPN today with help from Jeremy Fowler about the Jalen Hurts Nick Sirianni relationship. We'll get to that, I think, in the second part of the show. We'll address the early stuff first. But first of all, how you doing?
Doing well. Excited for the show. Fresh off the practice field. We got an Eagles football game in a little more than 48 hours. So excited for that. Yeah, it's a good time to take stock and talk about what's going on.
Where's the manufactured energy today?
Was that not energetic enough for you?
Why are you so down?
Down? I said I'm excited. There's football in 48 hours. I'm
okay.
Down. I'm thrilled. Bouncing off walls. Got up this morning. I woke up as if it's on purpose, and yeah, was eager for the day. Submitted my final grades last night.
Oh,
yeah.
Now we're talking. Now we're getting into the good stuff.
So all good stuff going on.
How was the curve?
I think I'm trying to be respectful of all the students here in case any of them are watching.
Sure.
I think for the most part, I was more on the generous side.
Okay.
I think that
how many people in the class?
Students, about 16 this year.
16. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How many straight A's are we talking?
I think it's. I don't think it's right to talk about other students' grades. To talk about students' grades.
Well, I'm not asking who. I'm not asking about the bad grades. I'm just curious about.
I understand that, but. You can do
curve-wise, did you hand out yes or no?
There were A's. There were a
A's.
number of A's. There were a number of A's, and I appreciated the hard work and the effort of the students, and I'm excited for next year.
Okay. Always another year.
Not always, but you hope they re-up the contract, right?
All right, let's talk about today's practice, a relatively light practice, a short practice, shorts and shells, but as we continue to monitor the depth chart stuff, I think we can start again at right guard. Nick Sirianni was asked about this today. Mekhi Becton, once again, the right guard today with Tyler Steen, a full participant in practice, the second team right guard. What do you make of that? What did Sirianni say?
Yeah, I make of it that this is the direction they're going right now. And I mean, barring poor performance from Mekhi Becton or an injury from Mekhi Becton or of Mekhi Becton, then I'm anticipating Mekhi Becton being the right guard. The fact that Tyler Steen's back at practice and still with the second team, that they're not mixing and matching. Nick Sirianni said today that no decision's been made. I think this is one of those situations where you watch what they do as opposed to listen to what they say. I agree with Nick. Literally,
it does them no benefit to declare anything right now. Somebody could get hurt, and there's no reason to publicly say that Steen is not the starter, and then he has to be the starter, and there's this back and forth.
Sure, but Nick tried suggesting there hasn't been a change, and there clearly has been a change.
I don't even know that he was suggesting there hasn't been a change. I feel like it was sort of asked in that way, but I mean,
there's very clearly been a change.
Yeah, it's been 3 practices in a row now where they have both been on the field for individual drills. Jeff Stoutland has talked over the years about those individual drills are maybe the most important thing because you're working on the very specific step-by-step stuff. They do the same thing every day of the combination blocks. I mean, it's not even going in another direction. Believe it or not, Mekhi Becton is the right guard. unless he gets hurt, he's the right guard.
Well,
it's over.
I'm not ready to say it's over. Because because they can go to New England.
They can say
next
it
week.
or they cannot say it.
No, I'm saying they can go to New England next week, and Beckton can look overmatched, and Steen can look good, and they say, all right, let's see Steen for a week with the first team. Right? There was a period. I think declaring it over on August 7th is premature, but there clearly has been a change, and I think it went from Tyler Steen's job to lose essentially to now Mekhi Becton's job to lose.
Yeah, I've seen enough Jeff Statland. I've seen enough practices to know that it's over when it's over.
Okay. I mean, I got to think next week's practice carries a lot of weight.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to be very curious to see how he looks. But I mean, you can wait until they declare it, or you can use your eyes and your history and call it.
Got it. All right, so you're calling it. Fair enough.
Quinn Davis with a super chat says, "Hey guys, why do you think the discussion around last season has largely been centered on the Hurts and the offense? If memory serves correctly, defense was a much bigger issue during the losing streak." A fair question. I think we can unpack that a little bit more when we get into the full discussion. So hold on a little bit, QD, and we'll get back to that. Otherwise, depth chart, Zach. If we're thinking about this as the sort of preparation for the game, it was once again not Dean. It was Devin White and Zach Bond getting most of the reps with the starters at linebacker. It was Isaiah Rodgers again getting the majority of the reps on the outside.
I think I was a little premature with the Keely Ringo.
Yeah. Do you think that that's the way that's leaning right now?
I do put stock into the first one up, and Isaiah Rodgers has been the first one up throughout this week. They've had this 4-day stretch. Isaiah Rodgers has been the first one up. There were 2 days there where I thought Keely Ringo was taking more of the snaps, but yeah, I probably would lean more toward Rodgers at this point.
And linebacker, you think those will be your week one?
Yeah,
Bond and White.
Yeah, I actually listened back to the show, and I think you and I have different reads on Devin White. Like I think Devin White's the clear top guy here.
I don't know. Why didn't he wear the green dot the other day?
Well, they both wore it.
Okay.
Yeah, they both wore it.
Okay.
But I think Devin White's the clear top guy.
I think he is. I think he is too. I just don't know that it's going to turn out that well.
I'm not suggesting that, but I'm saying if we're using our eyes, we're using like Devin White is the one he's playing the most first team. He's doing the most first team work. He's the one rotating out the least amount.
I don't know if that's true, actually. I think if you tracked who has had the most snaps with the first team defense, I think it actually would be Bond. But I don't view that as Bond as the top guy. I view it as they're looking like Devin White is spending some time with other pairs to work on those pairs in case that is what happens during the season. Like he spends a lot of time with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. He spends some time with Nakobe Dean as well. I think less time. I think Bond is more often with the ones than White is like sometimes on the field with the 2s and 3s. But I agree that come week one, Devin White's going to be the guy on the field.
Yeah, I think Devin White is the top linebacker right now. I'm not saying performance-wise, we'll see.
Yeah.
Sure. So we'll see how that goes. But that's been pretty clear. And I also think wide receiver 3, we haven't talked about it as much, but it is notable that Paris Campbell has been out all week, right? And we mentioned, I think you said on Anthony's show before, or on Monday, it was that like this is the stretch in training camp where jobs are won.
Yeah.
Right? And Paris Campbell, through the first week and a half of training camp, looked to be the front runner for the number 3 job. If not based on performance, certainly based on playing time.
Just on snaps, yeah.
And like, I know on football Twitter, and it's as accurate to say that it's like you poke fun at the depth charts released by the team communication staff. But it does stand out that there was oars for these different positions and not for a wide receiver 3. Now, I think you're at it because Paris Campbell was the 3rd receiver. Now that he's hurt, and this has been a knock on him in the past, we'll see when he gets back. But missing this week does matter, and I think players like Johnny Wilson and Britton Covey, you could find a Wilson-Covey combination. Although I was talking to someone about this on the sideline, and I continue to cling to the idea that Howie Roseman is going to try to make a trade.
I think so.
I think it's too important a position.
I agree. And especially if Paris Campbell can't stay healthy. He's got a groin injury that has kept him out of practice. I do like, Johnny Wilson ran with the ones again today. He had one drop on a throw that was not great from Jalen Hurts, but If the idea of Johnny Wilson is he's got this enormous catch radius, it was a catch that he should have made. I have liked what I have seen from Johnny Wilson. I said this before. I think that he's the guy who should be getting the reps as the number 3 receiver right now, because I think he's got the best chance to grow into being worthwhile on the field for them. He spent some time in the slot today, but I also think like the Johnny Wilson stock rising is much more a result of what's around him than it is. It's like Mario Goodrich winning the backup nickel job last year. He's the best of what they have, but it's not like he has been lighting things on fire.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. Preseason, real quick.
Yeah, let me know,
because look, I do think this is something fans are curious about, preseason playing time. And Nick Sirianni did say after week 1 last year that maybe he needs to reevaluate the preseason playing time. Like he did say it in the emotions of a game when they came out flat, but this is something that I know is relevant to fans, and frankly, fans want to know if they should be in front of their TV watching football players, or no, they're watching football players, watching starters play. Sorry to tell you, Nick Sirianni, as predicted, does not have an answer for it yet. His stated reason for it is he wants to communicate it to the team first. He said
I think that's reasonable.
He said they're getting through this practice. They need to see health, how these guys are doing. He said he'll take into account the weather. I didn't realize this, but it sounds like it's going to be pretty heavy rain down in Baltimore.
And what did he say when he was asked again about whether he was going to factor the weather in?
Yes, he said that they will take that into consideration.
Okay. And what did he say when he was asked about it the third time?
He said they're going based on what they hear.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my last question is, it's supposed to be pretty nasty weather-wise on Friday. What did he say when he was asked about it for the 4th time?
Yeah, there's a lot of fascination about the Baltimore weather right now. Yes, okay. Look, everyone's got a job to do, I suppose, right? I'm not disputing.
Yeah, Hurricane Schwartz all of a sudden showing up to ask questions at practice.
Great reference. I'm not disputing what you're inferring there. So, in any respect, Vic Fangio has said like he wants these guys to play. You've heard some of the veterans on defense. We discussed this. I think it's going to be like a mix and match type thing. I don't think the high profile offensive players are going to play. Jalen Hurts, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. I think those are the ones that like Howie really cares about not playing, right? I could be wrong. We'll see. If you look at it, the last time Jalen Hurts played in a preseason game was week 1 against the Jets in 2022. And they did have a good offensive drive. He also got a brutal late hit on the sideline. Nick Sirianni's throwing F-bombs at Robert Saleh across the way. And I was discussing with someone who was using that example to me, like, isn't it, and this was like an old school football type, like, don't you think they went into the season with momentum because of that? And I was like, no, they went into the season like worried that their quarterback just got, just got a late hit on the sideline. And I'm of the opinion that one good drive in August, like on August, 9th? One good drive on August 9th is not going to give you like the confidence or the rhythm that you need on September 5th. I do think there's more validity for defensive players from a tackling perspective, right? They don't tackle in practice. Maybe you want to get out there for a drive and like play actual physical football. I'm not of the like old school belief that you need to get your offensive guys out there for a rhythm. I think preseason football is different than regular season football. I think you get enough of that work in practice. I put more of a premium on players being healthy.
Yeah, I think I generally lean towards sit the guys who matter. It's not worth the risk. It's just not. It's a long season. You have some time to play your way into things. I think if you're going to make the case for Jalen Hurts and the offense to get a drive this summer, Kellen Moore sort of talked about this. The idea of like the purpose of the preseason is to work on the operation, and the fact that you've got a new center, and as Jalen Hurts talked about today, he and Cam Jurgens are now the ones who are dealing with the pre-snap reading and stuff like that. That is different. You've got a new person in his ear, a new scheme.
Sure.
I think to work on just the operation for one drive and, Jalen Hurts can hand the ball off 4 times, I think that would be really the only reason to go through it, so that the first time you're doing it with a new coordinator, a new center, a new exchange is not in the regular season.
Fair point.
But that's it. Like I don't need to see Jalen Hurts throw the ball or take a hit. Like
now there is some fascination
what
about.
what would be really funny is if they did one drive and he threw one pass and it was intercepted.
Yeah, after the interception list. That's true. It would be ironic. I
guess.
Don't you think? Yeah. I enjoy your laugh. That's an accomplishment. There is some fascination about the kickoffs. And I probably didn't need to burn a question on this, but this was seared in my mind from the spring when I asked Nick then about working on the kickoffs or that kind of thing. And he said, we'll have to wait until Brazil to really see how it goes. And that's the type of thing where I think you can do it during the preseason. And I've heard varying reports from different NFL camps, like teams want to use the preseason to experiment with things. Nick has this idea that like they have this schematic advantage perhaps, or this schematic mystery. I am curious to see how they approach kickoff returns because it is different. It's not something that they do that often during practice. Maybe they do it more in the walkthroughs, but we see them doing drills during practice, but we don't actually see them working on the new kickoffs. And so I do want to see the types of players who are out there, body types wise. I want to see the returners who are out there. I want to see how it looks. I mean, I watched the Hall of Fame game back again. You watched
it a second time?
Well, no, I didn't watch it the first time because we were at the joint practice.
Oh, you said you watched it back again.
Yeah, no, I didn't watch it live. I watched the replay of it. And then I've seen some of these XFL clips, but I don't know. I'm genuinely curious about football strategy, and I don't know what the proper strategy is for the kickoffs.
Who do you think their returners will be?
Well, I think during the season it'll be. I think Cooper DeJean has a chance to do that role during the season.
Interesting.
But I think I think during the preseason, I'm expecting to see Will Shipley. I'm expecting to see Isaiah Rodgers, and then maybe in like the second half, and Anaya Smith. But I would think some Covey. That's what's interesting here. Maybe some Covey as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we'll see some Covey.
See some Covey? Okay.
I would imagine.
Are you curious at all about the kickoffs, or am I overstating it?
Well, you're not overstating it. That's your own opinion. I'm not gonna yuck your yum.
Okay.
I'm less curious about it from a preseason standpoint because I do expect that they're not going to show the interesting stuff. I also think early in the season, my supposition is they're going to just kick the ball out of the end zone because they don't know what to expect yet. So you might as well take the 30 yards, as opposed to risking a big return.
I mean, I can see John Harbaugh like having a field day with this during the preseason.
Why?
Well, John Harbaugh loves preseason. He loves
John. Yeah, I was thinking about your boy Jim.
No, John Harbaugh loves preseason. He loves special teams.
Yeah, that's fair.
I imagine he's going to view these games
he's gonna run a reverse,
as like this incubator for trying to figure out how to do this. So, Harbs will come through on Friday night.
Harbs will come through on Friday night. You have it here, a promise from Zach Berman. If you want to, if you were on the fence about whether to go to the game on Friday night until Zach said Harbs will come through, and now all of a sudden you're thinking, hey, I got to get down there, weather be damned. Well, good news. Game Time can help make that happen for you because and I know, and we know that Game Time is the best place to get last-minute deals on tickets to the games and the events that you want to see. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater, and more near you. Flash deals. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. You got the zone deals. You've got the all-in pricing, so you're not going to see it listed at one price, but then all of a sudden all these fees are coming up. No, you see the real price from the beginning. You got the lowest price guarantee, where if you find the same seats for a cheaper cost somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And you have the Game Time ticket coverage, where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. And, I mean, baseball season's still going. Phils are coming back to town soon. Game Time will hook you up. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Zach, before you read, I just want to let you know, I did an absent-minded thing before the show today. I left my water over there. So as you read this ad break, I'm going to go get my water.
Sounds good. And speaking about getting water, you might need some water after a guy's night out or a girl's night out, right? Whatever you do, because the perfect place to do that is the Bet Parks Casino for an after-work get-together, a date night out with friends. Sip on tantalizing drinks and soak up those warm weather good vibes right now at Parks Casino. Parks Casino, this is how you win. It's the casino of choice, Parks Casino. They now offer an epic $5 happy hour with great food and drink every Wednesday through Sunday at the Liberty Bell Gastropub. You can enjoy $5 drafts of Forged Stout, Victory Seasonal, or Parks Pills. If you're like Bo and you enjoy a good glass of wine, you can enjoy a $5 glass of Albertani Cabernet. You like an Albertani Cabernet? Well, you can enjoy it for $5 at Bet Parks Casino. You can also enjoy the drink of summer, a $5 Twisted Tea, frozen whiskey, Arnold Palmer. I enjoy an Arnold Palmer. I enjoy a whiskey, so now you get that $5 Twisted Tea, frozen whiskey, Arnold Palmer. Plus, you need some good food while you're there. Feast on flavor-packed $5 small plates of braised short rib sliders, hot honey chicken sliders. That's what excites me. Or the rotisserie chicken flatbreads. The all-new Parks Casino epic $5 happy hours happening right now, okay, at Parks Casino. And there's also, of course, it's not just a night out to enjoy drinks and food. You also get to enjoy 3,200 state-of-the-art slots, 115 live table games, a beautiful poker room, plus a collection of incredible award-winning restaurants. You can also check out the best cover bands every weekend only at the 360 Lounge. And great news for Bo. It was just announced Tiffany Haddish is coming on September 27th. Tickets for all shows at parkscasino.com. Visit parkscasino.com. Must be 21 or older. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Parks Casino. This is how you win.
This is how you win it. It's workshopping. Okay, let's talk about practice itself today. Pretty uneventful, I would say.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah. Shorts and shells, didn't do a ton. I could give you a couple little guys to talk about if you want. Austin Watkins.
Term, little,
Austin Watkins made a really nice toe tap play at the back of the end zone. Very debatable about whether he got both feet in. The DBs said he didn't get it in. Cooper DeJean said he didn't get it in. I thought he did get just barely it in. Ref gave it to him, so nice play from Austin Watkins.
Well, the ref is the only one that matters.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Austin Watkins. Grant Calcaterra made a couple nice plays and continues to flash a little bit more.
Must be the stash.
Kenny Pickett made a nice throw to Britton Covey with Tristan McCollum in coverage.
I'm proud of you, Bo. I'm proud of you for looking past the issues that you have and acknowledging a good pass.
Yeah. It was a nice pass. It was a good throw. Mm-hmm. It took him about 8 seconds to get rid of it, and it was there were like 3 plays today where he just held the ball in 7-on-7. So still not seeing things clearly, but that's okay. I think he has looked better over the course of the last couple practices.
Michael Dunn says hello,
and Darius Slay had a nice PBU, although it was a one-on-one situation down the field with Joseph and Gata.
That's what I was about to say.
And if Darius Slay's not making that play, then we got real worries.
Did you hear what the fan screamed out?
No.
As the fans screamed out, do it against AJ. Right? And so I'm like, man, the guy just, you play the guy across from you there. But yeah, that'd be harder to do against AJ Brown.
I mean, that's pretty much all I got from notes for today. You got anything?
Yeah, I mean, that I think you hit some of them on the head. I don't have my notes in front of me, but I did have Calcaterra a few times in my notes.
Did you go loose leaf today, or did you go notebook?
I had my notebook today. Okay. I had that Senior Bowl football guy notebook.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, that is a really good one. I think you covered it well.
Nice scene today. The football romantic. You've got Chris Long and Bo Allen were there today. And then they were off to the side, and Jason Kelsey comes out. I guess he was getting a workout in, walks over, slaps Jaws on the back, and Jaws is with Wilbert Montgomery, and now it's Kelsey and Wilbert Montgomery having a nice long conversation. Just the the brotherhood that spans generations. These guys who know what each other have been through, being stars in Philadelphia. Just kind of a nice little thing. I don't think like Kelsey and Wilbert Montgomery did not look like they were old friends. Like they were like meeting for the first time, but they had a lot to talk about. Wilbert Montgomery's talking him up, and it was nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, Wilbert Montgomery, one of the great players in Eagles history. Probably the third best running back, I would say, in Eagles history.
LaShawn McCoy and Will Shipley.
LaShawn McCoy, number 1. Steve Van Buren, number 2. Wilbert Montgomery, number 3.
Say it to his face.
I probably would say that to his face. Yeah, I mean, I'm not like that's. Okay. I don't think that's that's not a controversial opinion. LaShawn McCoy leads the franchise history in rushing yards.
Okay.
He was traded away. Games. He was traded away at age 25 or 26, right? So, yeah, I don't think that's a controversial opinion. Yeah, it looked like Chris Long and Bo Allen are pumped to see you.
By the way, Brian Westbrook ready to run you over now.
Actually, B West is awesome. And there's a chapter on Brian Westbrook in a book coming out on September 24th. The franchise, Philadelphia Eagles, curated history of the Birds. Really enjoyed talking to Brian Westbrook for that book. I have a cool thing in there that I think that was actually one of my favorite player chapters.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was an interesting nugget in there that I thought.
You can't tease us a little nugget? That's okay.
Yeah,
We're going to do a full book week. We're going to do a full book week.
No. We don't. First off, we don't need a full book week. It was kind of about like how Brian Westbrook changed the game, or almost changed the game.
I think that's fair.
He gave the example. Yeah, I'll give this nugget that's in the book. He gave this example of how, like he was with his children and they saw Eddie George somewhere, and they couldn't believe that Eddie George played the same position as him, right? And like it was kind of like explained that when Brian Westbrook came in, this was the kind of running back you wanted, like that 230-pound guy who would get you the 4-yard. And look, Eddie George is a Philly guy. Like, I'm not ripping on Eddie George here. Abington Ghost, right? But
it's not George Eddie?
No, it's not George Eddie. Okay. It's Eddie George, yeah. I actually, yeah.
You wanted to get into something. I know you did.
Yeah. No.
Go ahead.
No.
All right, finish your story and then tell it.
No. I'm not kidding.
You got to do
it. So when I was like at a young age, my I don't know if it was like my father or my grandfather. They got like an outlet store football. I loved it. It was like a present for me, like an outlet store football jersey. It was an Ohio State jersey, and I'm a big Michigan fan, but I loved wearing jerseys.
Sure.
And so I wore it, but it was like, I think it was like, and if you're an Ohio State fan, please correct me here, because maybe the numbers don't line up, but I vividly remember saying this. Okay, and this was like 2 years after Eddie George left Ohio State. And so my assumption is that it was an old Eddie George jersey that was sold at an outlet store. But I remember telling everybody that it was Pepe Pearson. He was the running back for Ohio State at the time. And so because college jerseys don't have the names on the back, and, I wanted to seem like I really knew what was going on. So I'm like, yeah, this is a Pepe Pearson jersey. So if Pepe Pearson does he wear the same number as Eddie George?
Let's see. Pepe Pearson was 29, it looks like, unless that's an 8. 29. And Eddie George. 27, Eddie George.
Okay, so then maybe it really was a Pepe Pearson jersey. But I remember telling everyone that I was wearing a Pepe Pearson jersey. Anyways, that's besides the point. I didn't need to get into that. The nugget is that like Brian Westbrook was so different than Eddie George. But the way Brian Westbrook played, he talked about it was like the way Christian McCaffrey plays now. So the game is really shifted, and so it was.
I think he did change that.
Yeah. So
I
was. I'm proud of that Brian Westbrook chapter.
Well, and where could people read that once the book is released?
Anywhere books are sold. You can get it. I'm actually have a website that I'm working on where you can get it directly from me, or you can get it from Amazon or
It's going to be www.bermanzac.com?
No, it's going to be byzachberman.com. You want to see what it looks like right now?
Sure.
How's that look so far?
Ooh,
you
spiffy.
like that?
I do like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Could use a little more skin, but otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
Oh, handsome
so-
picture. All
yeah,
right.
it's not-
Oh, that reminds me. We never talked about you changing your profile picture on Twitter.
Do I need to talk about that?
Yeah, it was a big deal.
It was a big deal. I don't think it was a
Yeah.
big deal at all.
Everybody was talking about it.
Literally, no one was talking about it.
Okay, what was your thing that you wanted to circle back to on the Eddie George Eddie front?
It was that the Pepe Pearson thing.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought it was something about the.
The first name, last name?
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no.
Oh, okay.
I just kind of accept that for what it is.
After yesterday.
Yeah. Okay.
Press conference nugget. Do you have a press conference nugget before we get to the
Press
Sirianni-Hurts of it all?
conference nugget. Let's see. Spoke to Dallas Goedert about the red zone component, about being used in the red zone, which he was in that joint practice. He's hoping for more opportunities down there. He spoke to Josh Sweat about Josh Sweat's expecting to play on different sides this year. You know, he's mostly been on one side in the past. It was a big story like last year when he had that sack against the Cowboys from the defensive left side, right? And he expects to move around. He says it kind of gets boring going against the same guy all the time. So those were two nuggets there from Nick Sirianni.
You asked another question to Dallas Goedert.
About the sleeping, the whoop band.
You will
whoop
not
band.
let anybody wear a whoop without asking him about the whoop.
Well, first off, I'm an aura guy.
And you got to have a second session with Josh Sweat. You were worried that the last. Remember when you ran away from the press conference? You thought this was going to be your only chance with Josh Sweat. You got a second one.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. I just got to chat with Jalen for a little bit. Yeah, that was nice.
No, he doesn't hate everybody in the media apparently.
He doesn't hate people in the media.
All right, well, let's
get to
into this.
Jalen.
Okay.
Let's get to Jalen.
The story on ESPN from Tim McManus that details a lot of the things behind the scenes that were going on last season.
Yeah, great job by Tim.
Fantastic work from Tim. Really good sourcing, really good details about a lot of the things that was speculated about. What were your main? Let's talk about the story first, and then the reaction from the Eagles, and also what you think it means moving forward, spinning it ahead. What were the most important things that you learned from the article?
So I want to answer this question two ways. Like when I say learned, I want to say stuff that like I didn't know before.
Yeah.
Okay. And so some of the stuff in there which they illuminated really well about the Jalen and Nick relationship, and I didn't necessarily learn that.
Sure,
but I'm saying the audience did.
The notion that.
But
Jalen Hurts, part of the fracture of their relationship is that Jalen didn't trust Nick's, X's and O's acumen.
Yeah.
I think we all would have thought that, but to have it sourced is different. To have it confirmed is that changes things.
Yeah. So the thing that I learned, like the nugget that there were two big nuggets in there that I learned. I did not know that Jalen Hurts called Wink Martindale.
Sure.
I thought that was a cool nugget, and that's what I asked Jalen about. I could because I had not heard that before. And then what you asked Nick about Nick having this meeting before the season where he took accountability and put last season on him. I've had conversations with Nick about like last season and about accountability, but I've never heard that specific anecdote before about that meeting in the spring. Where Howie Roseman was there, and a lot of people were there, and so that was a good lead, and I learned that, and so that and the Wink Martindale things were the things I learned. Outside of that, some of the Palace intrigue things that we hear about, or that
also the specifics of like Nick overriding a third down play call because he wanted to run the ball instead of pass the ball. Did we know that specific?
Yeah, he said that last year, Nick.
Okay.
Yeah, Nick said that he over. Okay. I actually think he said he over.
Interesting.
Yeah. He put that one on him.
It's so bizarre to overrule someone to do the conservative thing.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Look, I think the article. I don't know if Eagles fans care about this. I think it reflected well on Brian Johnson because there is kind of this idea about Brian Johnson that like he was overmatched last year. And I think, and I've said this, Brian Johnson was not running his offense last year. I think Brian Johnson, I do think Nick had a heavy hand. We talked about that when Diana Rossini's podcast came out about this. So that that part of it, I think some of the details about like how Brian Johnson was considered a future head coach and he kind of lost himself a bit last year. I thought that was interesting. The Jalen dynamic of it. I thought there were some good nuggets there about how Jalen wanted the offense structured, right? That's actually something Anthony's asked me on his show before about what Jalen's looking for in an offense. And we talked about this on the show last year, how the offense became very reliant on deep shots, right? And they weren't using the short and intermediate game particularly well.
I think that's interesting that it was that for it to be framed as Jalen wanted to throw the ball over the middle of the field and the offense was not giving him those options. Sure. I think that is different.
Yeah. And then I think there's kind of, so those are some of the takeaways from it, but then we can also talk about like what this means, because I want to point this out. Like, we've heard Nick Sirianni say everything's fine, and kind of downplay some of the stuff from last year. At first press conference of the summer, he said he can only go based on his personal relationship. Like, he doesn't pay much attention to reports. And I was thinking in the ride over here, I should have asked better questions in the Nick Sirianni press conference. And one of the questions I should ask is, like, I appreciate where you're coming from here, Nick, but what does it say that enough people have this perception of you and Jalen, number one? Or number two, does the head coach need to have a close personal relationship with the quarterback, or does it only need to be a fine professional relationship? You know, like the line at the end of the story was a good quote. Like, they're working together, but they're not going to have dinner together anytime soon.
They don't hate each other. But
like, I am curious, you've made the reference before about like Belichick and Brady, and we've heard some things about like Walsh and Montana, right? So does that matter, or do you just need to get along with the quarterback?
And I also am curious because, when I asked him about the scene in Tim's story, the lead about the taking accountability and saying, put last season on my shoulders. If accountability is like a bedrock foundation, why wasn't it there last season?
Yeah, and good point there, because Nick did say earlier this year that one of his core principles they need to kind of reinforce and was not emphasized enough.
Now, that scene did remind me of the, after his his introductory press conference, he did a similar thing.
Yep.
Going in front of the team and taking, I did a bad job here. This is on me, and sort of making fun of himself. And I remember Brandon Graham saying that was a thing that endeared him to the team early on. So this is this is a little thing in the Sirianni playbook. And maybe last year when you're coming off of the Super Bowl, you're probably a little bit less willing to take a back seat, and you're a little bit big for your britches. I think that's probably natural. I thought the story actually reflects well on both of them.
Exactly. I agree with you.
Like, for Jalen, he cares about winning, right? And if he doesn't think the offense is giving him a chance to win, he would be frustrated. The not stumping for Sirianni after the end of the season. Like, if the nature of their relationship was not so great, I think that we make too much of the, he's 24 years old, he's 25 years old, but if I was in my mid 20s and I had a boss who was making my life miserable and was negatively affecting my job performance, and I was asked to gas them up in a press conference, I don't think I would have handled that very well either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, definitely not.
I probably would have taken a different tack.
Yeah, I know you would have.
Okay.
Yeah. You're much better at that, at hiding your true feelings.
Sound like my wife.
I think that, and the Wink Martindale thing, that's good. He should be, he's searching out answers at a time when he's not getting great answers. I think the Nick taking accountability stuff is all good, and I think the message from Nick today, I think it's fine. And even the stuff in the story about the things that they have tried to do to fix this relationship, and, now adding Kellen Moore as a layer there and someone who's going to be taking over the offense, all that is good. I do say, we can get to it after the next ad read, but Jalen's press conference today, it pissed me off as strong, but it was very childish, I thought. And you talked about this after the Seahawks game.
Yeah.
Right? Like the lack of accountability. Jalen Hurts does not need to be accountable to us. We are just guys on the outside, and he's saying the thing about like you have just a little bit. You don't know what you don't know. Like there's rumors, there's reports, and there's reality, and we live in reality. But he is not accountable about
publicly,
right?
And I think privately last season.
Yeah, and I think privately last season. And so, I would expect more. I would want more. If we're supposed to buy that both sides have changed, I don't think that Jalen Hurts has changed in that sense.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on this. We'll get to our ad reads because I do want to dive into this. I have thoughts on last season based on this story.
Well, a lot has changed over the years, everybody. One thing that hasn't is the great taste of Miller Lite. Another thing that hasn't is that it remains less filling. So what is the best thing about the original light beer? Miller Lite sparked this debate in 1975, and we still haven't settled it. Great taste. Well, you know the great taste of Miller Lite. And the less filling, 96 calories. You can't do better than that. Miller Lite keeps it simple. It's undebatable quality, great taste, and only 96 calories. It's the beer that strips away everything you don't need and holds on to what matters most. A light beer that tastes like beer, less filling, and only 96 calories. The original light beer since 1975. You don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/PHLYBirds, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer, which is related to anywhere that sells books. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer.
I want to tell you about Ace Hardware Home Services and what they bring, okay? Because whenever we get ready for the next job, we remember what to bring, or I should say Ace Hardware Home Services remembers what to bring. They bring experience. They're local plumbers and techs that handle everything from repairs and seasonal maintenance to installations and upgrades. They bring understanding. They listen to your goals, and the job is not completed until you are satisfied. They bring helpful to your home, so you can spend more of your time on the projects that really matter. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. So that's no. So here, I want to discuss.
Well,
this
let's just if you didn't see it.
Yeah.
There's a back. He's being asked about the Wink Martindale stuff, and he's playing ball on that. He's explaining his side of that, and then he's like, why?
Wait. First, he was like, because I asked the question, and he kind of like looked at me, and then I probably asked it too fast, and I said the phone call with Wink Martindale last year, and he explained it. Then there's another question and another question.
Someone asked him about the weather.
He's like, "Where's this coming from?
Where's this coming from?"
Do you think he actually wanted to know where's this coming from?
Yeah, this part is like so silly to me because I said this before, but like the notion that Jalen Hurts is going to go up to this press conference without knowing that this story was written this morning and was published is it like we're not all morons, and it also reflects badly on the PR department as if they haven't just prepped him. Like you're going to get questions about this.
Yes,
it's a little bit silly. But the thing that I thought was childish is the like, who wrote the story? Okay, why is this relevant now? Like,
I actually disagree with you.
Okay,
because I thought.
Tell me.
Because I think now you can think like the part that's childish is like the response that came thereafter, but I'm all for having. I understand the performative nature of press conferences, but for him saying like, all right, so why did you write the story? And I thought Tim gave a really thoughtful answer, and I'm fine with like I think press conferences can be desensitized, so you can say like, all right, why is this relevant? Why did you write it? Because Jalen's not in our line of work.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not the who wrote it.
I don't think he was.
It's the you don't know what you don't know. Like, I think the why is this relevant is a little bit. Like, I know that you want to move forward, but everybody has a job to do, and all of that, as Tim said, contextualizes what is coming ahead. Like the nature of your relationship is very important.
Yeah, you're right, and that's why I actually think the answer that came after was less like that's the part of Jalen that I think you guys don't know. You choose. I don't
as
know
we've
what I
talked
choose
about,
to
you
tell
have
you.
an opportunity to tell us what we don't know.
Exactly. And by the way, like Tim McManus is an outstanding reporter. That story is not published without like trying to get comment, and it said in there, Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen, Sirianni and Hurts declined the comment. Like you can, if people don't know, well, here's your chance to put it out. Here's your chance to set the record straight. Like, I've had these types of stories before, and I get that question from the subject, like, why should I talk to you? And I'm saying, well, because the story's going to run no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
So here's your chance to have your voice in the story, to have your perspective in the story. And then you also get, because I know there's some fans who wonder about like anonymous sourcing and well, if you're not quoting anyone on the record, and by the way, Wink Martindale was quoted on the record. That's why I didn't have to say there was a report that you spoke to Wink Martindale,
Mm-hmm.
like Wink Martindale said it. But I think that people who are not directly involved in the story sometimes don't, in this business, to be truthful for something that they might not be authorized to speak about, they speak on background with reporters. And I do it, you do it, we do it. That's the business. Jalen had his opportunity to go to speak for the story. So I never like when like the response is like why is this coming out? You knew this was coming out. You had the opportunity to address it. But regarding last year, well, did you have anything more on his answer?
Go ahead.
Regarding last year, I think this does show the other side of winning. Because, and I've said this before, I said this when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, it happened when they lost the Super Bowl. Everyone feels empowered when you win. I think they got to a situation last year, and Tim really did a good job explaining this, that Nick felt empowered, right? He didn't have the same background with Brian Johnson and Shane Steichen. He had a heavier hand than he had in the past. He's riding high. He just brought the team to the Super Bowl in year 2, right? He views himself as like an offensive, as the key offensive piece here. He just lost his OC. Nick really wants to have this role, okay? Or to have a heavy hand. Jalen Hurts just got this $250 million contract, right? He is the franchise quarterback. He's the face of the team. He's one of the faces of the league. He comes back for year 3 starting, year 4 in the NFL, and he probably wants, I want this my way, right? Like you have to listen to me, and he's probably acting a certain way. And you hear this expression, the disease of me, that you get from winning. And I think this is a very real thing in the NFL, that everyone thinks they're the reason why you won, and they're more empowered after you win. I saw this in 2017 going into 2018, and I think that's part of what happened last year.
I also think, to that point, and there's the question about, wow, if the Eagles have a bad relationship with another franchise quarterback again after Carson Wentz, like, what does that say about the organization? I think there is something fundamental about the way the organization is run, where when they view themselves as Super Bowl or bust, like a team that has really high expectations, that building is very tense.
Interesting.
It is not
interesting.
Like the 2022 season was such a joyous season. It was a little bit unexpected. Yeah. They were so good, and then you come off that, well. You come off at the 17 completely so, because it was a total surprise. You come off of that in 2023, and the expectations are super high. They have all these. You haven't had the full off season, and so like the staff is changed, right? And they're still expecting Super Bowl or bust, and it's like the culture in the building from the top on down is very, I said tense, but it's like we cannot afford to backslide in any way, and like we must do everything we can. Are we still on? Okay.
Okay. On the screen in front of us, we are no longer on, but
we're good.
Yeah, we're good. This is a really good point by you, and it's one. Yeah,
and I think that's part of it. And it's to your disease of more thing, right?
Yep.
But and so if Howie Roseman is the most important person in the organization, but Nick Sirianni just took the team to the Super Bowl and he wants to have more power, and Jalen Hurts just played the best game of his life in the Super Bowl and he wants to have more power, then there is a little bit of the competition there. But it's not always the and I don't know much about the other 31 buildings, but I have heard that people who have gone elsewhere from the Eagles would say that, like you actually can win and not be in such a anxious environment.
Yeah.
Like that is a real thing there.
It's a great point, Bo. Like it's a great point, and I think it starts. I think that starts with Howie. I think Howie really wants to create or to enforce this culture where like we are not going to rest on our laurels. Like we are, I remember talking to him after winning the Super Bowl, and he's like, his first thought after winning the Super Bowl was like, we need to do this again. Like I'm addicted to the confetti.
Sure.
I think after they lost the Super Bowl, like his whole point was like, we can't get complacent. Like you need to go. And I think that's probably part of what makes Howie special in one sense.
Yeah.
But that could be like that could make a building tense. I could see how that's the case. I think the other thing too, as far as like the empowering quarterbacks, you've made this point to me in the past, and it makes a lot of sense for this topic as well. The Eagles are not a coach-centric organization, okay? There are other organizations. You saw the Patriots. It's a coach-centric organization. I would even say like, maybe the Rams are
the Rams,
a coach-centric organization.
The Chargers now, right?
Yeah.
You would imagine,
Exactly. The Eagles are a front office-centric organization, but when you're a front office-centric organization, even more than that, I think you're a player-centric organization, right? Because like who's most, and we say between Howie, Jalen, and Nick, who's most vulnerable? It's Nick, because I think that, I think back to when the Eagles traded Carson Wentz, and part of that, and I wrote about this and I discussed this, was that the Eagles really empowered Carson Wentz as the franchise quarterback. It was almost separate from the team. And I said, if you were in this position again, what would you do differently? And Howie, and I appreciate the thoughtful answer, he said he doesn't know if he would necessarily, because like he wants players. He doesn't think it's a bad thing for players to have input and for players to feel connected to the front office and that kind of thing. So I see that point. But yeah, I mean, Jalen, I can say this anecdotally, I can say this from conversations with people. Jalen definitely felt empowered last year. Like Jalen came back. He was a star, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, but Nick spoke to you. He answered your question about accountability, and he said accountability is missing in this world.
What do you think it was? Why did he know that I was a quarterback?
Yeah, he knows how to pick them.
Yeah,
he knows how to pick them.
Yeah.
But
he is a talent evaluator.
He also said that accountability comes from humility, right? And I think Nick has exhibited humility in our conversations with him in front of the camera, behind the scenes. Like I think he does. I think there is humility from Nick.
But I think that's exactly right. I think last year it was probably hard for everybody in that building to have humility when you're coming off of the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
Right? And so it took
that's true.
Getting knocked down a peg to, regain that humility.
And so Jalen, and by the way, I think it's cool that Jalen called like Wink Martindale. I think that's
so
one
too.
of the things I like about him is he's searching for answers. And if you're the prize quarterback and you're concerned that your coach isn't putting you in the best position, like, maybe there is that you might ruffle feathers behind the scenes. Like, but I am curious if Jalen operates with the same humility, because Nick gave the example how what he was really proud about was after the Super Bowl, the Eagles didn't make excuses. They had every chance to make excuses. The field, James Bradbury's penalty, and they didn't make excuses. And I heard Jake Rosenberg on John Middlecoff's podcast, and he gave a similar sentiment. He talked about the way the 49ers acted, and he talked about the way the Eagles acted after the Super Bowl, right? But after the Seattle game last year, Jalen did not take accountability.
Yeah.
And we talked about this on the show. And then when given, AJ took accountability, and 2 weeks later. But 2 weeks later, when Jalen had the opportunity, he was like, why are we still talking about this, right? So I am curious what accountability and humility looks like from Jalen's perspective, because I think Jalen is an exceptional quarterback, and I think Jalen's a really impressive person. And I think Jalen also has like the type of leadership attributes that I personally admire. Like I think he works hard. I think he stands for the right things. Like I think but I do think humility and accountability are important attributes that Nick has exhibited more than Jalen so far.
Yeah, and I think he cares about the right things. Like like as we talked about in that story, I think it generally reflects well on both of them.
Yeah,
even though that they're at odds, right? I just the accountability, and I know that it doesn't have to come to the press. And Jalen is always going to have a bit of a combative relationship with the rat poison because as he understands we have a job to do, but it doesn't affect. It shouldn't affect what he wants to do. I was disappointed in him today.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have the same view of today as you do, but reasonable minds can disagree. I do think, because I agree with you, that I think they both came off like decently in this story. But they have their warts, but I think their overall personalities came through. I can't imagine the Eagles think this, but like if this is what came out from last year, they should be pretty happy because last year was a crappy year, and there was a lot of bad stuff. Like there was a lot of parts of last year that were not good.
Well, we have that super chat.
Okay.
We should be circling back to about so much focus on their relationship, but why not on the defense? What do you say to that?
Yeah, good question. Because I think that there's a general view that the defensive coordinator was overmatched and that the defensive personnel wasn't good, and I don't think that was viewed as like a deep. As you've said, the Eagles are built to be a high-powered offense. They're built around the quarterback. The head coach is from the offensive side. So I think that's where more of the intrigue is. I think the acceptance from the defense was like, yeah, this was never good. And they need to bring in kind of the adult in the room, D coordinator, and now they changed their personnel. But so if Jalen asked me, like, why is this relevant? The answer why this is relevant, and I hear those in the chat, or I see those in the chat bringing this up, like Jalen has a game in 2 days. Why is he talking about last year? The reason this is relevant, in my opinion, is the coach is still here, the quarterback's still here, right? Like their relationship matters. It's the most important relationship in the building, the head coach and the quarterback. Maybe the head coach and GM but is up there, or the GM and the owner, but certainly head coach and quarterback is essential. They're both still here. If Nick Sirianni was fired, I don't think it would be as relevant, like rehashing this relationship. If Jalen Hurts was traded, and now like if the year Carson Wentz was traded, if Doug Peterson came back, it wouldn't have been like all these questions about Doug and Carson. What's relevant is they're both still here. So this happened last year, and they need to make it work this year.
And what do you think it says? How does it color Nick Sirianni's standing right now? Yeah. I mean, it doesn't. It's what we thought, right?
Yeah.
But
I stand by what I've said since January. Nick needs to win because I don't think Howie's going anywhere, and I don't think Jalen's going anywhere. And I think Nick's a good coach. And I've used this line on this show before: 3 years, 3 playoff appearances, 2 10-win seasons, 1 Super Bowl. There aren't a lot of coaches who can claim that. But I think Nick knows too that he needs to make this work. And if he doesn't make this work, he won't be the head coach in 2025.
Yeah, well said. All right, make sure that you are liking and subscribing, all that good stuff on YouTube, on your podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, wherever you buy books, wherever you buy beer, all that good stuff. Evangelize the show. We are back tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And I got to tell you, I have not 100% decided on the identity of the Bo Wulf Camp Crush, but we have to reveal it tomorrow at 2 o'clock. It's going to be a sleepless night for your boy.
I do have one other quick nugget that I meant to get in because I do want to hear the Camp Crush tomorrow, and I don't mean to rain on the.
Not at all.
One thing that I did hear today and kind of talking around a bit was that the Eagles coaches also spoke to Wink Martindale at some point this offseason. I'm not sure when, but the idea that like
but not in that same time frame.
I don't know when.
Okay.
But just like the idea that this was a system that really flummoxed them. in like their self-scouting.
And also, wink, we know you hate Brian Daboll, so help us.
yeah,
beat him.
maybe so. Yeah, actually, I did want to make a joke. I didn't think, first off, it wasn't my story, number one. And number two, like, there's so much good stuff in that story. Yeah, I didn't want to make this joke, but I wanted to make the joke that maybe the reason Wink Martindale didn't show up to the meeting with Brian Daboll that day is because he was on the phone with Jalen Hurts, right?
That's good.
So, yeah. Anyways, Camp Crush tomorrow.
What did you... What do you think today was like for Tim?
I think his phone was probably buzzing.
Yeah.
Number one, and
big day, big. This was Tim McManus day.
Look, Tim's awesome, and I tweeted this. I remember working in the past, like with a group of people who were like, you don't talk about someone else's story online or that kind of thing, and I tip my cap to him. Like, I've competed against him in a friendly way now for 13 years. And
I think it's not vice versa. I think it's not so friendly on his part.
That's not true. Tim's great. I texted him. I can tell you what time I texted him this morning.
Hold on. Put your guesses in the chat at what time this morning Zach texted Tim about the story that was published.
What time did the story come out? What time did the story come out?
I don't know. That's not the question. Like, because everybody knows you wake up early.
Yeah, but it wasn't out when I woke up.
I'm gonna guess it was 6:15.
I want to see when it was out. Actually, I texted him at 7:01 this morning. 7:01. So I had read it, deciphered it, and texted him at that point. I want to see when it came out. Tim. So what do I think life was like for Tim McManus? I imagine he got a few calls angry calls. I imagine. But Tim's ironclad in his reporting. I know that. He's well sourced. I know that well. And I imagine, and also ESPN has good editors, right? So this wasn't sent out, and it's like, oh God, I think they probably went through it. And Jeremy Fowler's a good reporter, national reporter, plugged in. So I imagine Tim went to bed last night feeling strong about his report, and he deserves.
I'm sure he had some butterflies last night, though.
Nah, he deserves the love today. He's good. He worked hard.
With chest out, but he's got to show up to the press conference to be there to take the heat.
Yeah, and he's there. Yeah. And what I also respect and feel good about Tim for is so Joy. What time did that come out? 6 a.m. Okay. I guess I did not get to it at that point. But Tim's we're getting into this here. The business model at ESPN is such that Tim's not writing stories every single day, right? He's doing
shots at Tim.
No. So he tweets his camp observations every day.
Yeah.
His whole job is to write stories that hit, right? And this is one that hit big. And credit to Tim.
Yeah, love a T-Mac.
Yeah.
All right.
So does Shield. A little too much, but best partner you ever had, right?
I'm sure. All right, that'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Thanks to everybody for watching and listening. We are back tomorrow at 2. And then on Friday, the preseason opener, we've got a kickoff show at 7 o'clock and then a post-game show following the action. Last question, Zach. Do you think the weather forecast is going to affect what Nick Sirianni does with the starters on Friday night?
I actually do think it might, but I think there's a little overkill on that. I think the Hurricane Schwartz joke. I got to be honest. I put the Eagles above myself in terms of their play. Their situation matters more than a reporter traveling. If it's heavy rain, I am not excited about driving back at 1 a.m. in
please don't
pouring rain. And because those nighttime on 95 and the torrential downpour is not fun. I've done that many times. It's not fun.
Get a hotel.
I could, yeah, but I'm trying to help out. We don't need to get in.
You know what would be much worse for the company, Zach? A dead Zach Berman.
Much worse for my family than the company. But no. If Emily's watching the show, she's like, "Yes, Bo, thank you." Yeah, we'll
don't
see
be a hero.
Weather. We'll see the weather. Maybe it won't rain.
Maybe.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. For all of us here, we thank you for listening and watching. We'll talk to you later, and as always, we love you.
like the mayor.